Hey guys, Canuck here. Welcome back to Course Design 101, and we've reached the end of this beginner tutorial series, and it is now time for you to demonstrate what you've learned in kind of a final exam. So what we're going to do is we're going to build a par 4 together, and I want you to try to mimic as best as you can the par 4 that I am building on screen. And obviously I want you to add your own little flair to it. But I really want you to focus on things, especially like sculpting and sizing of greens, bunkers, fairway, and stuff like that. And then I want you to share it. So, hit me up on YouTube or Twitter. Show me a picture. Show me a little video of kind of what you built. And I'd love to see how close it is to what I built here on screen. So I think that would be kind of a neat thing. So let's jump in and let's build a golf hole, shall we? We're going to go to New Course. So let's try to get all of the presets pretty much the same. We'll just call it the final exam. Don't be nervous for those that don't like tests. Theme? Oh, I don't know. Let's do something like let's do a delta. Let's go delta. All right. So terrain. I want to make it kind of hilly so we can practice out of our smoothing. So I'm going to make this pretty hilly. We'll add some trees just as some guidelines. So we'll put these both at 70, and then we'll put these at 0, 0, 0, and we'll put the water level at 0 too. So we're going to put in our own water at some point here too. All right, so there is our plot layout. Please make sure you set all of these to 0. Okay. And continue. So we will have different plots of land, slightly different plots of land, but that's okay. So let's start off by going into our course settings, our rough settings, and setting these down to 0. Okay. So now, this is where it's kind of going to get a little bit tricky because our plots of land are going to be different, our elevations are going to be different, things like that. But I'm just going to kind of fly around the plot, and I'm kind of thinking for our final exam hole, we're going to build a slightly uphill dogleg par 4. So apologize if we're getting dizzy here, but I just need to fly around and pick a decent spot here to kind of get started. Let's go with, this is a decent spot. We'll just put one here. All right, so we are going to add our hole. I'm going to tee off here. Let's make it like a mid-length hole, something like about 400 yards maybe. So here, and do this here. Okay. So a golf hole, something like this. Again, yours won't be exact, but let's see how close we can get it. So next what I'm going to do, just so I can get an idea, is I'm going to clear my generated object. So I'm going to clear all this delta planting away, just to open up my hole a little bit, so I can see what we're going to do. Like that. Okay. So you can see we're going to kind of do a bit of an uphill par 4. So what I think we should do is we should maybe kind of trace out what we want the hole to look like. So we're going to keep it pretty straightforward. Okay, nothing overly fancy. So I think we'll have our green obviously here. So I'm going to use the measure tool just to kind of trace out what we want this to look like. This gives me an idea of what I want the hole to look like before I lay any surfaces down. So maybe our green's going to look something like very basic, something like that. Okay, if I went from back to front, maybe you're looking at about 18.5 yards, something like that. Okay. So there's our bunker, or sorry, our bunker. That's not a bunker. That's a green. And then maybe a couple little bunkers in here. These are just placeholders. We'll We'll obviously make the bunkers a little bit more interesting than this, but a couple bunkers here. Maybe we'll put one at the back. Again, there's a lot of smoothing and things that need to be done on this hole, so this is hopefully going to be a bit of a challenge, I think. Water. We should probably look at adding some water. Ooh. Doesn't seem like water's a huge good fit here, but we really should practice doing it. So maybe we'll have a lake here at the back. Kind of not really in play, but sort of in play. Just gonna trace that out there. There's where maybe our water hazard's gonna be. And then we'll have our fairway, which will kind of slope out this way. And what are we at? 221. Kind of bring it back around here. And something like this. So pretty basic. And then maybe a couple bunkers here. And maybe one over to the right here. Let's just do one on each side just to make it a little bit easier to deal with. Okay, so there's kind of a general, very, very basic looking par 5. So the challenges with this hole, for me, with this, are going to clearly be sculpting. Because if you look here, this is going to be a bit of a challenge to sculpt. So keeping everything nice and smooth, that's going to be our main focus here. So this is going to take a bit to build. This video is probably going to be split into at least 2 parts, maybe 3. Maybe 20, 30-minute kind of episodes. So that's the plan. All right, so let's get started. Some people ask me, like, oh, do you always have to start with the green first? This is just my workflow. I think quite a few people, I think, start green out, but you can go any way you like. All right, so we're going to start by tracing our green. I'm just going to kind of use the basic surfaces, but you can do whatever you want. Okay. Also, people were asking, why do you put your splines so close together? They don't need to be close together. It's kind of just like a bad habit I have. They don't need to be super close together. Like, those are pretty far apart, so that's really all you need. And then you can just, like we learned before, sharpen and smooth, build the spline, and we will toggle our light rough to about, let's go 4. That seems to be my magic number here. All right, so we've got our green here. So next, what I'm going to do is we are going to flatten this out. So I'm going to use, I shouldn't use that brush. I should use the fuzzy brush I've been showing you guys. But actually, I don't mind sometimes when I flatten my greens, just using this kind of harder brush. I'm just raising it up a little. So obviously you're not going to have the exact elevation, things like that I have. That's going to be impossible because we don't all have the same plot. So just try to mimic as best you can what I'm doing. And then put your spin on it. Okay, so there is our green. I might actually even raise it up a little bit. So I actually use landscape raise here. Might raise it up a bit, maybe a couple feet. So it's above. Oh, like that. All right. So it kind of has, it's kind of been lifted up here. So I might actually bring these bunkers down here now. Maybe a bit of a change of plans. So I think I might add some bunkers in here. And we will keep one back here as well. And we'll look at adding our lake too. So let's get down to business and look at building some bunkers. So let's, again, there's lots of different ways you can build bunkers, but let's use our shapes here. And this is where I think our courses are going to differ in terms of kind of bunker shapes. But what I really want you to focus on with bunkers is sizing. Okay, I don't want to see ginormous bunkers, which is why I see a lot of designers make their bunkers look like that. And you compare it to the green, especially when it leaks into the green like that. We don't want that, okay? Just looks messy. We want to keep it relatively proportional. If that anything. So I'm going to try to use these little shapes and kind of create maybe a interesting little bunker here. I don't like that. Something like this. I kind of like that bunker like that. And then maybe one more, it's maybe slightly smaller bunker here. Sure, something like that. Now that we can see that this bunker's kind of, it's really covered now, so, or it's really hidden, we don't want that to happen. So we really got to flatten this out and make it a little more visual. So we're going to play with that now. Let's play with our Flattened Tool. And I'm going to flatten this area out a bit. So just raising it a little bit as we go. And now I kind of want to see how this front end is really high. I want to make my fuzzy brush a little bit bigger. Then we'll just work on dropping that down a bit. You can see I'm not dropping it down a ton. That was only about 6 feet. Same thing here, about a foot or two. Okay, and now those bunkers are a lot more visible. And then I might look at bringing this side up a little bit. Okay. So there we go. And let's look at building a little bunker at the back here as well. Okay. Something like this. I'm just trying to watch the time here. I want to break these into relatively similar sized chunks or episodes here. Okay, do something like this. I'm just using the one brush, but you can get creative with your bunkers. But you know, considering how, let's just use the measuring tool here. I think the green from here to here is about 37, 38 yards deep. Okay, and then these bunkers are looking at 12 yards, 15 yards, one a little bit smaller, like 9, 10 yards. Okay, so I want you to focus on trying to keep these bunkers about that size, if you can. All right, I know it's starting to look messy with all the little points, but we'll get rid of those shortly. Once we finish drawing out our fairway here, or our bunkers, I mean, on the side, or our fairway bunkers. There we go. Been a long day at work. So I think what we're gonna do actually, and something I like to do actually sometimes before I lay down my fairway, is I like to throw in my fairway bunkers first, as it kind of gives me a place where, like, oh, I can weave my bunker or my fairway maybe around those greens or those fairway bunkers. So something I do like to do sometimes. So I think we're gonna do it here. So I think I might move this bunker up a little bit. But again, I'm just gonna keep it pretty basic bunker. I might use the advanced edit. Let's use the advanced edit to make that a little bit wider. Don't really like that either. That just takes a little trial and error to get something I like. Don't really like that either. But Whoop. There we go. Something like that. Kind of an ugly bunker. But for time purposes, I want to make sure we get somewhat of a hole, a semblance of a hole down. Might not be my prettiest hole I've ever built, but it'll be something. There we go. Couple bunkers like that. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get rid of all these points or all these measuring tools here. So I'm just gonna find one, Click on distance marker, and we'll clear them all. We'll get them all out of the way now. Okay, so now all we have is a couple fairway bunkers, which we still have to sculpt. We've got our green. Now we're going to look at adding some fairway. We'll do our little transition kind of trick here. Pick a couple points. Plop our measure tool down. I really hope people are watching this video after they've watched all the other previous Course Design 101. So you know what I'm doing here. Right there. Perfect. Okay, so now we're going to draw our fairway. Like this. Trace, trace. Bring it kind of close there. And now I'm really keeping an eye on my yards to tee. So I kind of want the fairway to start around the 190 yard mark. Kind of around here. Maybe I'll bring it up this way, and I might have the fairway kind of curl around the bunker here. Now I am really choking the fairway at kind of the 280 range where a lot of the drivers hit, which is kind of a cheap move to do on every hole. Don't do that on every hole. Find some other ways to incorporate strategy, but for this hole, we're gonna do it. This is not really a strategy tutorial. This is more just a how to build things. If you're looking for strategy tutorials, I highly recommend heading over to B101's channel. He's doing a whole design 101 series, so something that's kind of meant to be watched after you take a look at my beginner tutorials and start getting a hang of the tools, and you want to learn a little bit more about whole strategy. He is the master at it. So B101, I would highly recommend go checking out his channel. All right, so we have our really messy fairway. So now we're going to get to some sculpting. So right now, this is probably the most important part, because this is where I see a lot of beginner designers really struggle with, is turning this into something that's a little bit nicer looking. So use our sculpt. We're going to primarily use our Flattened tool to start, and I'm just going to kind of start by making my way up the fairway here. So this brush is fairly big, so we're keeping this pretty flat for right now. Don't worry if it goes over your bunkers, we're going to sculpt those later. So I'm just kind of going about 10-15 yards at a time. See how well this is flattening out? Okay. Around we go. So making it a little bit smaller as we kind of head down the hill here and to the green. There we go. Got a much nicer looking, flatter green. Or sorry, fairway. That is not a green. Okay. So we still have to work on sight lines and things like that. We're still not even close at that point, but we can actually look at, because right now, if I don't really want the tee here. So if the tee was right here, and I hit play hole, okay, those fairway bunkers I can't see. I want to be able to see those fairway bunkers off the tee. From here I can't see them. So I kind of want to bring the fairway down a bit, okay, and I want to really expose these bunkers. So that is probably the next thing we're going to do before we start actually sculpting the bunkers a bit more. So use the raise tool, and I'm making this pretty big. I tend to use that brush on page 1, but you can use that if you want. It does a pretty good job too. All right, so I'm bringing this down. Okay, as you can see, the bunkers are already starting to show themselves. I'm actually going to bring this entire hole down. It's a little further up than I want it to be, 8 or 9 feet. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to start raising kind of the back edges here to mounds so I can see, or not quite turning them into mounds, but it doesn't take much, raising about 3 or 4 feet. But now I can really see that bunker. And I'll do the same thing here. You can also help it by lowering down here. Not a lot, and you also have to make sure you look at your fairways and make sure you haven't ridiculously sculpted them when you do that. So just nice, smooth little edits. Smooth little edits. You don't need to be drastic. It's nice and smooth. All right. So we still need to do some more fine tuning of these bunkers, which we will, but I think that is a pretty darn good start. So I'm just raising the back edges up a little bit. I'm working a little bit faster. I do realize that. Okay, and we still do need to add the water. Actually, I should probably remind myself here. Gotta add that water. And we'll do that probably on the next episode. So I gotta remind myself that we are doing that. All right, so what we have done so far is we've laid our fairway down. We have now smoothed it out nice. It's still not it's not there yet. Still got to do some fine tuning. Bunkers still need to be sculpted, but we have the bones are here. So the bones are here. So we still need to work on sculpting bunkers. We got to work on the water, tee box area, get into some planting, and then some final touch-ups. So this is probably going to be a 3-part series, 3-part final exam. Might even be longer. I just want to kind of split it into 20 minutes. So that's the plan. So this is the end, part 1. Give this a go, and hopefully this helps. Hopefully you enjoy it. The feedback has been unreal, so I really appreciate all the support, guys. And yeah, I can't wait to see what you guys can do with this final exam, and then with your course designs beyond that. So we will be back very shortly with part 2 of the final exam. We'll see you then.